We're in the middle of the Kuntris, the essence of Chasidus. We're on page 31. We are the second paragraph. Yesterday we learned that the Chasidus is not a composite of other parts of Torah, rather an independent way of understanding Torah that infuses life into other parts of Torah, which is going to be explained at length later. The Rebbe said that just as Torah in general is a klal to pratim, is a generality for details, and all the details that there are in the world, including the sciences and political systems, and whatever issue there is, that there is a virtue in part of that system, all of that is found in the Torah. And he told us the story of the previous Rebbe who was at a meeting with different leaders and people, not necessarily, of the Jewish world, or maybe of the Jewish world, but of the frum world, and each one had a political system that they supported, and they asked the Rebbe, what is his? And the Rebbe said, his is Torah, and Torah has the best of everything. So whatever your political system is, and you believe that part of it, that there's good there, it's the best. The Rebbe says, if indeed it is the best, then that part then that issue is found in Torah. Let's continue now. 31. Benegei l'chochmas. The Rebbe says the same is true regarding chochmas, sciences. HaTorah hi ha-chochma ha-yoser nailis. Torah is the greatest wisdom. As it says, Ki hi chochmaschem ubinaschem. For Torah is your wisdom and your understanding, le'einei ha'amim, to the eyes of the Gentiles, of the nations. So in other words, Ki hi chochmaschem ubinaschem. If you find a science, you find a wisdom that has chokhmah, you should know, the Torah says, that Torah has it as well. And Torah, Torah is the source. So therefore, don't walk away thinking that the chokhmah of science, astrology, or whatever else is so magnificent, and it came on its own, and therefore it has won over Torah. No. Let's continue. V'leizu bilvad, third paragraph, and not only this, all hashpah, all vivifying and sustaining vitality in the world, v'gam ba'ilum asel yonim, and also in the spiritual worlds, tluya b'digduk kal shel Torah, depends on one minute, seemingly insignificant detail of Torah. Look at note 25 for a moment, page 30 in the bottom. In Kabbalah Chasidus, the term world refers to the different stages of spiritual and physical existence, and levels of concealment of God. All the worlds are elevated and sustained through the performance of mitzvahs and the study of Torah. They depend on the appropriate observance of even its most minute detail, for the Torah is the wisdom of God. So this idea, we have to take a moment and explain this idea. This idea is a very important idea in Chasidus, in Torah, but Chasidus again illuminates it. A digduk kal. What's a digduk kal? A digduk kal means, let's say, when you pour water at your table, for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your guests, you pour water like this. Sometimes we forget and we pour water like this, or like this. We pour it not forward and straight, but we pour it kind of backwards, twisted. What's the big deal? Well, that's the way you pour water when you purify a body, a mace. So the tradition is that's not the way you should pour water. Now, is it a sin to pour water this way? No. Is it something that is suggested not be done because we don't want to emulate the way you pour water when we're purifying a dead body? Yes. So that's even less than a digdukal. A digdukal is within Torah, within a mitzvah. There is the way to do it the right way, and then there's the way to kind of do it to get away with it. This is even less then this is not a mitzvah at all. But nevertheless, you'll find in such things and other such things, there is great emphasis put in the community, taught by rabbis and teachers. Why? Because every detail in Torah and every detail of a minhag touches the essence. So the Rebbe says here in the Kuntris, all hashpah. You hear this? This is a very large statement. All hashpah, all influence that comes into the world, including the spiritual worlds, are tluya, are dependent on a digduk kal shel Torah. However, next paragraph, page 31, Le'zui muhusa shel Torah. This is still not the essence of Torah. What is the essence? He says, muhusa shel Torah, the essence of Torah is mashihi, quote, miyuchedes legambri, completely united by Ein Sof Baruch Hu, with the infinity of God, the infinite light of God, hamelubish bo, that's invested in the Torah, betachlis hayichud, with the ultimate unity. In other words, Velvel, someone will say, you know what Torah is? Torah is so holy, so special, that even the minutest detail makes an impact on God's influence in the world. That's not the essence of Torah. That's a result of the Torah. I need you guys to really get this clear. In other words, all of the results of Torah are not the essence of Torah. What is the essence? Unity of God and Torah. That's Torah. Divinity. Torah is divine. Everything else is a sidekick, is a result, is a benefit from Torah. Fine. But someone will say, you know what Torah is? That I'm going to live long. So I want to learn Torah. I want to live long. Someone else, you know what Torah is? Torah is, I want to be wealthy. And Torah promises for certain mitzvahs, you'll be wealthy. I'll do Torah. Is that what Torah is? No. That's a side product to what Torah is. And this doesn't contradict, you might be wondering, it doesn't contradict all the rewards given for Torah observance, mitzvah observance in the Torah itself. It doesn't contradict that. Of course that's true. But that's not the essence of Torah. In other words, the essence of Torah is God. And if you strip the essence of Torah from Torah, then all the side products and sidekicks and results are meaningless. And this was and is the argument of secularism of various forms, going back to the Enlightenment movement, the Haskalah, to today's, anything that you want goes, and you create your own way of observance within and without the community. It's not identifying the Kedushas HaTorah, the divinity of Torah. Because if you believe in the divine aspect of Torah, it's not up to us mortals to decide what Torah is. We're mortals. All we can do is accept the divinity and go with it, and explore it, and understand it. But if you don't accept the end all of Torah is one thing, divinity, then you don't have Torah. You don't have the essence. You have fascinations. You have excitement, a thrill, intellectualism, emotionalism, but you don't have the core, the nekuda. Yes, Yoin. Go ahead.
So two things. So first of all, is that the reason why even a rebbe in a yeshiva is not allowed to take a salary? That it has to be done in a different way. It's that kind of thing. So that a person is not.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Yeah, but
it can't be a profit thing of the Torah.
Right.
I mean, like if I'm sitting and learning in yeshiva and I'm collecting food stamps or whatever, because I'm not doing it for Torah, because I don't want a job, I don't want to work. I'd rather have state of New York, New Jersey pay for my yeshiva. That's not using Torah for divinity.
As I've said, and I won't back away from what I've said over and over, and we'll say it again, Yoni. It depends why you do it. If you are in love with Torah and you can't sleep at night without learning Torah, and that is to you like it was to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Torasoi Umnosoi. The Gemara says, Yoni, in Shabbos, I believe, or Brachas, that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was Torasoi Umnosoi. His job was Torah. If anyone emulates that, and it's a big if, but if you emulate that, then, and the government says, I make it possible for you to do that because you make Torah your job, I have no problem with that. But if it's otherwise, if it's anything less, then it's as you said. And I'll tell you, I said it, but I'll say it. I thought like you for years, trust me. You and I both grew up here in Brooklyn, right? But that day, when I took a ride with a kollel person and saw his beat-up jalopy, his station wagon that they used to use in the 1960s, and he's still driving in 2005, he's still driving a beat-up station wagon that's an antiquated, an antique that you can sell on eBay. And when I asked him, how do you survive? And he says, I learned Torah. He was so genuine. He wasn't a chassid, he was a litvak. I felt he was so genuine. It was a short ride from 13th Avenue to 17th. Yoini knows, it's in Brooklyn, the avenues, here in Borough Park. It's 4 or 5 blocks, but you got traffic, so you got some time to talk. I was floored. I was so humbled, because it was the first time that I heard from someone that he's learning Torah legitimately. His wife is working to bring him parnosa, and his job is learning. And he said, thank God that I'm able to learn, and I love learning and learning and learning, and I get government assistance, and my wife works, and when I'm able to, I tutor, and that's how I raise my family. So, I don't want to judge. I don't want to judge. I don't want to be a judge. But let's continue. Your point, as far as if you identify with the divinity of Torah, you shouldn't make kardom lachtach boy, is what the Rambam uses, which means an axe to cut the wood, meaning to say you shouldn't benefit from Torah. That's why there were, and maybe still are, people who didn't get smicha. They weren't ordained, and they can learn a lot, and they probably want to learn better than many rabbis. But they didn't want to have the title rabbi because that would be benefiting from Torah. Yeah. I know there were people in the 1950s and 770. I think my shver was one of those people, my father-in-law, who didn't do that. The Rebbe pushed everyone to get smicha because it's practical and important for outreach. As soon as you learn smicha and you call the rabbi and you go into a little kibbutz or a little kvar or a little city, first of all, gets you to move and it gets you to learn more. I know a shliach who didn't learn much in his youth, and he told me, he asked me to speak for him once, and driving there in Florida somewhere, he said to me, ever since I've gone out on shlichus, and I got, from people in my community, I'm not dealing in this community with non-religious people, I felt so inadequate. So what did I do? I started to learn. I learned Shulchan Aruch, and I this and that, and I'm still learning, and I was also humbled. Here is a person, 35, 40, he's not in, and he's already middle of his career, and he realizes that he's called the rabbi of the community, and if he doesn't know the basics and of halacha and things like that, it's a shanda, it's a shame, it's awful. So what did he do? He started to learn. And I'm not going to say, but there's certain public speakers, famous ones, who didn't get smicha. And today, in the world we live in, if you call yourself a rabbi, I don't know how it's in Eretz Yisrael, but I would think it's the same. But here in America, and you come out as a public speaker and a rabbi, you better have smicha. And I know a few of them were caught, and they quickly went and learned for smicha. It's not. Now, of course, sometimes people are called rabbi, and today, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, they put on their tombstone, Rabbi Harav Agoin, which is ridiculous. But that's part of the culture. And if you don't write Rabbi, Harav Agoin, the rabbi, the scholar, the rabbi, the genius, and all that, it's an embarrassment for my father, my grandfather. What a shanda. What are my kids who are now in Lakewood or in Chabad or in Panovich or in Mir? What are they going to think about the Zayda? Or take, for example, someone who didn't have a beard in his youth for whatever reason. And then he gets older, and towards the end he puts on a beard, right? They try to bury all the pictures that he didn't have a beard when he didn't have a beard. It's an embarrassment. What's the embarrassment? On the contrary, here you show a person who, for whatever reason, didn't have a beard in his youth, and then as he got older and wiser and more frum, he put on a beard. It's the greatest accomplishment and act that you show. But no. We got to bury those pictures. I'm not going to say who, but a very prominent Rosh Hashiva came from Eretz Yisrael to America. He didn't have a beard. And today you won't find a picture of him that way, because when they put out the journals, the initial journal of the 1930s or 40s had his picture without a beard. I was told by someone who was in yeshiva at that time, in that yeshiva, that they buried and burnt all the leftover journals. Because it's an embarrassment. He's a big Rosh Hashiva. He wrote Svarim. So, I know we're off on a tangent, but sometimes these things are so more important, Why am I saying this? Because the Torah is divinity. If you make a business, so I wanted to summarize, Yoni, if you make a business out of your rabbinate then you're right. Then you're not in sync with the Torah, with the divinity. You're right, I agree with you. But if you don't, then you can, and if Hashem gives you a way of reaping benefits from that, kol hakavod. In other words, when it says in the Torah, you respect your parents, you're going to get long life. Well, you could, the way you were thinking before is, wait a minute, if I'm doing it for long life, it's wrong. And the answer is yeah, but if you're doing it because Hashem says, I want you to respect your parents, and it happens to be that Hashem also says you'll get a reward of long life, take it, grab it. Nothing wrong. God didn't give us the Torah, one second, Hillel. God didn't give us the Torah for us to live like paupers and with tsaras. See, that's not godly. And frankly, that was a thinking for many years that, what it says in Pirkei Avos, Pas ba melech teichel, mayim tishte, right? Say the tishte. Or, in the dormitory yeshiva, the broken windows, like someone said the other day, we always had air conditioning. We had central air in our yeshiva. All the windows were broken, so we always had central air. Right? Now, no. Hashem doesn't want you to live this way if you don't have to. If that's the way it is, you don't skip town and say, yeah, I can't learn Torah because it's hot. I can't learn Torah because it's cold. I can't learn Torah because I don't have enough what to eat. No. But to go and say that part of divinity is you must live like a schlepper. You must live in a way that's, you could live better. No, that's not a Torah way. And that's the general approach today, to live in a respectful way. So yes, do we cherish the story with the Maggid, with the Reb Zusha Isser? You want to know how to live. They sends him to the Reb Zusha, and he had barely a chair, and he didn't even know. Absolutely, and believe me, there are such Yidden, and they're Bali Darga, really. But the populace doesn't relate to that. Yes, Hillel.
Well, what you were saying a few moments ago reminded me of a story that I heard the Talmud Rebbe say about the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz. Mm-hmm. That it was a custom in Tzanz, Motzei Simchas Torah, that the Rebbe would throw out apples to the Chasidim.
Yeah.
And so it got to be a bit of a scrum. Everybody fighting for the apples, and it got to be a sakana. So the Rebbe gave a decree, said that everybody should stand in their place. If an apple comes to you, it's meant for you. If not. Nobody should push ahead. And if anybody who pushes ahead is going to get 10 years of misfortune.
Right.
So everybody's standing very reverently and still, except for one old guy, and he's pushing to the front. And they said to him, "Didn't you hear what the Rebbe said?" He said, "Yeah, I heard the Rebbe said I get 10 years. I'll take it."
Good story. Let's continue the paragraph. Since all the spiritual worlds, in comparison to the essence of God, is nothing, is kila, like nothing, so too are all the worlds in comparison to the Torah. And therefore, don't laud at all the Torah that it is the vivifying force of all worlds, since it's nothing in actuality considered. It's considered nothing in actuality. It's no big deal that God gives chayas to the worlds. This is not a virtue and something to laud Torah with. Ella, what is Torah? The Rebbe says, due to its essential, its quintessential point, which again he repeats, which is that being, that it's united with the infinite God, this is what I told you earlier, it automatically incorporates, automatically, gam, you see the word gam also, as kol hamine mailos of shleima sheba'olam, all types of virtues and wholesomeness within the world. Val yada, and because of it, hashpas achayas, there is an influence of vitality into the world. Okay, therefore, last paragraph 31. Av shekol, the word kol is in bold. Av shekol chelki Torah, although all parts of Torah, nikudosam ha'atzmis, the very essential point, it is that it is united with the infinite God, nevertheless, ikir nikudazu, primarily this point is expressed b'Toras HaChasidus. In the Torah of Chasidus. In other words, yes, you have it in the Gemara, and you have it in Shulchan Aruch, and you have it in Kabbalah. But primarily, where is it expressed in Chasidus? U'ka'amar b'hamaimer. And the Rebbe says, as I said in the Maimer that he said in 1966 on Yutas Kislev, but the Geil Chasidus, it was a Maimer based on the Rashab's Maimer that he said in 1914. Shehi davke hamshochos ein sof. The idea of Chasidus is the drawing down of infinity, shenimtza bedradla, which really is found in the Reisha Lo Yasyada in a level called beyond knowledge. And I don't want to go into it. Next page, 33.
I want to go into it.
Not now. Let me maybe at another share, okay? A request has been made. Fair, but not now. Because all parts of Torah, the Rebbe now explains why he made a statement that where is the yichud of Ein Sof most expressed in Chasidus, not in the other parts of Torah. That's a heavy statement. Prove it. The Rebbe says, let me explain myself. He says, all other parts of Torah, the infinity within it has been invested in imagery in a form. Seer, look at the words here. These are very precious words. Good Hebrew. Seer hamagdir umevata. It's been dressed up in a category, in a condition, and in a bitui, in an expression. Gitaruis muhusa shechelik zeh. In other words, the let's say the infinity in the Gemara is expressed through one cow goring another cow. Very nice. But guess what? What do you and I hear when we learn those halachas? Velvel, a cow gored another cow. How much do you pay? 50% or 100%? And the imagery that is connoted in the simple text, in the alluding text, in the homiletic text, and in the esoteric text, Mailim, it conceals al pshita Ein Sof, on the purity of the infinity hamalubish ba, that's enclosed and invested in it. Helem de levush shekaviyochol yevshar achlichoi. And the Rebbe says it's such a concealment. It's almost as though kaviyochol, anthropomorphically speaking, you can't undress it, you can't change it. In other words, an ox is an ox. 50% is 50%. And when you learn about that, go and tell someone, you know what you're learning about divinity? He says, you're out of your mind. The rabbis are discussing here, how much do you owe? 50 or 50? I had an ox, I have a get, I have a kedushin, I have a sukkah, I have a lulav, I have a matzah. What divinity? You start explaining him, it comes from God. Well, all of that is hidden. And the Rebbe says more so, very powerful. In other words, when we come to the conclusion that all of that is part of Torah, which is true, nevertheless, the ox remains an ox, and the money remains a money. And the get is a get, and the kedushin is a kedushin. And it's tangible. So therefore, the Ein Sof, the infinity of God, the divinity of Torah, as it's expressed through each of the 4 sections of Torah, Pshat, Remesh, through Sod, the Ein Sof is Nelam, is concealed. Next paragraph will conclude with this. Vilu Torah Chasidus, conversely, the Torah Chasidus lebal Shem Tov, kim she'ena mugderes beizet siyur. Chasidus is agendaless. That's the word I'm looking for. Everything else has an agenda, a holy agenda, but it's still an agenda. Chasidus, look at the words here, is Eina Mugderes Be'ezet Siyur. It's not limited to a certain agenda. And those seemingly agendas, forms, images that Chasidus does employ kilavush tachlichem. He's quoting a verse. It's like a garment that can be put on and taken off and exchanged. The yachleifu. Shlochein kolelis he is called dal techalokim. That's why Chasidus does have a relationship with all four parts of Torah. Pshat remesh drusoy shem Torah umechaya isem and vivifies them. Kedahal, as we're going to learn later on. Therefore, that's why the tziyur, the agenda and form that's in Chasidus is not a concealment on the infinity. Let me say it in simple English. When you study Chasidus, you're studying God. And you know you're studying God because Hillel says he wants to know more about Radla. Now, when you just mention Radla, you're elsewhere. You're not eating a bagel. Radla. Now, what is Radla? Good question. But once we start talking about Radla, and we start thinking about Radla, we're not thinking about bagels. We're not thinking about the sun. We're thinking about God. Yes, Yonason, I know you have something profound to say, because you learned Chasidus. Go ahead, Yonason.
And the question is that the essence doesn't cover over essence.
The essence doesn't cover over the essence. Right.
So what that means is that when I walk without a yarmulke, I can't use my hands to cover my yarmulke, my head.
Right.
I have to use something else to cover me.
Right. So in other words, what you're saying is that in all other parts of Torah, it's like something else covering over. Whereas in Chasidus, it's the essence. So one essence can't cover over the other essence. There's a famous saying, it's Ilu Yadaiti, if I were a rich man. No. Ilu Yadaiti, if I knew God, Hayisiv, I would be God. So the Tzemach Tzedek, I think, said, and when you learn a piece of Likutei Torah, a piece of Chasidus, Yadaitiv, you can be God, because it's God. Not Ilu, if I were a Chassid, if I were divine. You want to be divine? Learn Chasidus. Chasidus is a piece of divinity. That's all. Yoini, some of us at times don't act with Chasidus. That's a different discussion because we didn't really inculcate the Chasidus into us. The Chasidus didn't take us and we didn't take it. It's all outwardly. But Isser, when you learn Chasidus and you live Chasidus and it's a different life. It's a Radlad life. It's an Atzilus life. Ilo Yadaitiv Hayisiv, not that you can't reach that. Hayisiv, you will become like God because it's a piece of God. It's a piece of God. Whereas a Gemara, Pshat Remesh Drusayt, which is all, of course, the Eibishter's Torah and all that, but the format of the particular style of learning on those four levels is such, as Yonason said, that the Helem, the imagery, the agenda is so palpable, so real, that it conceals the Ein Sof. And you don't feel the Ein Sof. And since you don't feel the Ein Sof, it can be lacking in Avodas Hashem. Now, see, you might be wondering, well, plenty of Chassidim that are not living with Ein Sof. Guess what? There are plenty of Chassidim that are not learning Chassidus and not living Chassidus. The payas are up, the Streimel's on, the Lubavitcher hat is on. It's very nice. It's a very nice game. And I'm not saying you should stop that game. I'm not saying that. But you have to take it in. And when you meet someone that learns Chassidus and lives Chassidus, you will know that this is the real McCoy. You will know. And you pay attention, you will find those people. Chevra, have a great Shabbos. We'll see everyone Monday. Yes?
And also to do meditation, to do the
Yes, and we have a meditation teacher right there, so you will please continue sharing and inspiring and teaching meditation. Sei gesund, everyone. Good Shabbos. Take care. Bye-bye.